And welcome back to Kidmin Talk, episode 154, I think this is. My name is Pastor Karl Bastian. I'm a full-time children's pastor, founder of Kidology.org, and it's always an honor and a privilege to get to spend a little time with you talking Kidmin. As I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, for 2021, I've decided to address 12 arenas of ministry. You know, so often I see online the question, what do I do as a new children's pastor? I really wish I could give you 10 steps in order, but the reality is there's a variety of things that you kind of have to address all at once. And so I'm going to tackle a new one of those every month in addition to other episodes on other topics. Last time in this series, we talked about the importance of being a shepherd and not a sheep herder, because above everything else, we're to pastor the kids that are entrusted to us. Today, I want to talk about first impressions, because no matter how awesome everything else in the ministry is, if your guests don't come back again after their first visit because they didn't have a good first impression, well, then none of the other stuff's going to matter, is it? So sit back and relax, and let's talk about first impressions. Today is sponsored by Balloon Feet. Not a paid sponsor, just something fun I'll show you in a little bit. So let's get going. All right, we're going to talk about first impressions, and we're going to talk about this in two distinct ways. The first is just in general, what are the first impressions that parents and kids and families get when they visit your church, and of course specifically the children's ministry. But the other thing we're going to talk about is your whole check-in area. I actually call my check-in ministry our first impressions ministry, because I don't want the people volunteering and serving there to feel like they're just doing a security job, or they're just passing out stickers, or they're just registering people. I want to raise the bar so that those who are focused on doing that job, they understand rather that I want them to be focused on the first impression that they give. Because before the kids ever get to the classroom, before they ever hear your amazing lessons, they've already got a first impression of your ministry. And more importantly, their parents have a first impression of your ministry, because the parents often don't even get to see the amazing things that happen in the children's ministry. Of course, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about marketing through Instagram and Facebook and other ways, you need to celebrate and communicate, the amazing things that are happening. But if they don't come back, you'll never get the chance to do that. And so first impressions is so important. So first of all, let's set aside the check-in process and how to have a great first impression there. And let's just talk in general. Now, if you are new to your ministry, or whether you have been there for 10 years, I want to give you an assignment, all right? I want you to choose a time. You can schedule it right into your calendar when you are going to visit your church for the first time. So what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to get in your car and you're going to drive away. Maybe you just go out to lunch. But as you come back, you're going to park your car and you are going to come in with fresh eyes. You're going to try to see and experience during the week what your families experience when they're coming in. So don't come in the office entrance, come in the main entrance of the church, and just ask yourself some questions. If I had never been here before, and this was a completely new experience, what would it be like? You might see some things that are like dead trees, or something ugly, or something outdated that just needs to be dealt with and taken care of. And then as you come into the church, you've got kids. You're going to be wondering, like, where do I go? What do I do with my kids? Is your kids' ministry check-in easy to find? Is it clear where to go? And as they walk into that area and it's all set up, do they know where to go and what to do? Is there clear signage? Is it not enough information, or is it too much information? And then go ahead and walk through your classrooms and down the hall and look at everything and try to look through those fresh eyes. In fact, I'll link in the show notes to an article on Kidology called Fresh Eyes. It gets into more detail in what you can do to go through. I remember once years ago when I was at a church and we did this as a staff, we literally walked around the building and we noticed for the first time that the side of our building that's not used at all had this ugly black like gunk running down the back of the building, but it was the part of the church that was facing the main road. So it looked gross. It looked unkempt. It didn't matter to any of us because we all entered through the parking lot and through the other entrances, and we never saw that. But it opened our eyes to realize that that's the side of the church that we present to people who've never come here before, that don't know you drive around the back and you come in the parking lot entrance. Well, you may discover something like that in your ministry as well. In fact, I remember once I had been at a church for several years, at least 2 or 3 years, maybe more. And I decided to do what I'm asking you to do, to just for a fall walk through the building. And I was so embarrassed. It wasn't too bad, but I had to laugh because I discovered something that I had missed for years. In our children's ministry wing, there was a message board. It was one of those old-fashioned ones with the little plastic letters that you stick in, and it was right by a staircase. And I had assumed that it was not kids ministry because it was so ugly and old-looking, that it must relate to what's up the stairs, maybe the adult classrooms and what they were called. And so I never actually looked at the sign, but I happened to look at it to see if it was updated, thinking maybe I could tip off, the adult ministry pastor to his outdated sign. And lo and behold, it gave room numbers and classes to our children's ministry. And I was mortified because the room numbers had changed. The names of the rooms had changed. The kids' ages were not in the rooms that this big old ugly sign said. All right, it wasn't ugly. It was old-fashioned. But I know there had to be parents who came down the stairs and entered our children's ministry, and they saw that and they read it and they went, oh, okay, second grade boys is in here. And they went down the hall and they found that room number, and it wasn't second grade boys. It was fourth and fifth graders or some other class. And then the teacher, of course, said, oh, no, second grade boys are over there. And a guest is going to be too polite to say, well, your sign is wrong, because they don't want to sound mean or rude, but they're going to notice that. And so give yourself that opportunity to ask yourself, what would the first impression be? Is there enough information? Is it attractive? Is it fun? Is it too much? I've seen check-in systems where they went bonkers, but there was so much noise and so much visual stimuli that it made it hard to know exactly where to go. So you got to find that balance between simple and clear and boring, or way too crazy. And every church is going to be different. So take that assignment seriously and do that this week. In fact, I'd love to hear in the comments, or message me at Karl@KidminTalk.com, or on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the different ways you have to reach me. And I'd love to know if you spotted something and you're like, oh my goodness, Karl, thank you. This is what I saw, or this is a change that I decided to make. And don't be embarrassed. I'm sharing my embarrassing story because it's not about us. It's about the experience of our families. So let's then shift into the First Impressions ministry. Now, you're welcome to use that. That's something I've been doing for years. But whatever you call your check-in ministry, you want to make sure that it is great, right? We want to make a great first impression. You've heard that saying, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So that first impression needs to be amazing. And understand, the families coming to your church, they have gone to several churches, right? And I know I have had families who have told me that, man, you were the 10th church that we went to and we were hooked. I've also had families say we had a whole list of churches that we were going to go to, but man, we're in. Our kids are begging us to go back to your church next Sunday. In fact, I love when my pastor sometimes tells me that he was talking to someone at the church and getting to know them. And when he asked, how did you end up deciding that this was the church home for you? Many times, and I'm so thankful he'll share this with me, they'll say it's really because of our kids. And my pastor says, parents will tolerate preaching or worship or things that aren't their style. And of course, we've got a great, well-rounded ministry here. So of course, I'm not dissing the other ministries of the church, but he'll be the first to tell you that parents, their kids are so important to them, they will endure things that aren't their favorite. Now, if it's horrible, of course, they're going to move on. But if a preaching style or worship style or something isn't exactly what they're used to or what they like, if their kids love coming to church, they will come. And they'll grow to like all those other areas. Ideally, we all should be doing a rocking job right across the board, because I certainly don't mind if kids are coming to my ministry because their parents love the preaching or love the worship. So it's a two-way street. Our responsibility is the kids ministry, right? Our responsibility is to make sure that the kids who come are begging to come back. But you have to impress the parents too, because the kids often don't share, don't know how to share, aren't old enough or mature enough or articulate enough to express these things to their parents. So you've got to do a great job with the parents. So I love acronyms. You know that. I use acronyms all the time on the podcast. I love to say that I have an acronym for acronym, a crazy riddle of nuggets yielding meaning. So let's just use the word great as our outline, all right? Because we want to give our families a great experience. So the first one is the letter G, and that's an easy one. It's the word greeting. How do you greet the families who come? Do you notice that they are new? Sometimes I'm hesitant to ask because, of course, we have this fear. They've been coming to the church for 6 months, but I just go ahead and ask. And you know what? Right now, if you're watching this currently, it's COVID time. We're wearing masks. I can blame the mask for not recognizing them. But don't be afraid to ask, hey, is this your first visit? Or are you new to High Point Church? Obviously, whatever your church is. And they'll tell you. And when they say this is our first time, be enthusiastic, light up, be excited. Say, oh, I'm so excited to hear that. That's fantastic. I always ask, how did you hear about our church? And they'll tell me it was online or a friend's recommendation or they live nearby. And you say, oh, that's so fantastic. And I just say, man, I just want you to know we are a church that loves kids and we are committed to partnering with parents because we really want your kids to fall in love with Jesus, to want to come to church, and we want it to be great for you as well. Don't launch into a sermon. Come up with your own words, but express to them your joy, your excitement, and just a little bit of a summary of who you are and why you exist, and say your kids are going to have a great time today. I don't know how well they'll be able to communicate that to you, but you're welcome to come visit and give them a tour. Escort them to the classroom, let them see the investments you've made in your set or your room decorating or whatever you've done to touch on the environment and make it appealing to kids. But be enthusiastic. Make that greeting positive. I also say make it fun. All right. I'm always trying to think, is there something I can do with an outfit or a silly prop or something to make their experience here at my church stand out? If other churches went, okay, you just sign in over there. You got to fill this card out. If they're not enthusiastic and fun, people that laugh build a connection. So I've got one of those invisible dogs on a leash. It's like a stiff leash, and I'll be walking my dog around, and he'll be sniffing up at the kids' legs. And for Dad, I'll just turn it and be like, oh, don't do that, like he's peeing on Dad's leg. The families laugh, the kids laugh. All right, I might have a yo-yo. I'm a Rubik's Cuber, so I'll have my Rubik's Cube, and I'll do my one-hand, 20-second solve for the kids, just to entertain them. If you dabble in a little bit of a magic, and by dabbling in magic, I don't mean the evil magic. No emails, please. But, fun magic, have a coin, pull a coin out of their ear. I'll roll a coin on my fingers. Something fun that you do. Now, if you're like, Karl, I don't have those kind of skills. That's right. What I do is I have what I call my happy box. All right, and we have a box at check-in that's just filled with some of those cheap little prizes, and I'll pull the happy box out, especially if the kids seem hesitant or unsure or a little nervous. Always get down on your hands and knees, not hands and knees, but get down at eye level with the kids and greet the kids first. That's one of my little tricks that I've been doing for years. When a family comes, I'll smile and acknowledge the parents, but I'll drop down and I'll greet the kid. And I'll ask them their name. And I have some silly things that I do that just makes the experience fun. You're welcome to steal these ideas. I've got a high five thing I do where I go to give the kids a high five, and they just cannot connect. And they laugh. It doesn't matter if they're little kids or big kids. They laugh. Now, if they've got a brother or a sister and the sister's little, I'll give the sister a high five, works fine, and then the brother can't. It's like, maybe you need to help your brother out here. Apparently he has trouble doing a high five. It's a running joke. The kids all know, and they all blame me. And, I'll even say I'm going straight. And I have a little secret pattern. I hate to give it away here. You can't just alternate because they're onto the pattern. So I literally do a left, left, right, right, left, left. I vary the pattern. And if they ever connect, you just say, hey, even a stopped clock is right twice a day. They got a lucky shot. So I tell them, go home. What you need to do this week is go home and go up to a mirror and practice your high fives in the mirror, because you'll never miss giving yourself a high five in the mirror, and then maybe you can work on it a little bit. And they laugh. Now, if I can tell they're embarrassed, you're reading the kid, sometimes I'll let them finish with a good high five. With the little kids, I do, hey, give me a fist bump. And when they give you a fist bump, go flying backwards 3 or 4 steps, grab onto a door, and like, man, you've been working out. Let me feel those muscles you got. And they just giggle and delight that. I've got some little kids that want to give me a high five or a fist bump every week just to see me flying backwards 10 feet. But those kind of little moments connect with the kids. All right, I love to comment on their outfits. If they've got sparkly shoes or light up shoes, especially little girls say, oh, I was going to wear my sparkly shoes today or my glitter coat today. And of course they laugh because that's ridiculous. But you want to use humor, and you want to greet the kids, and you want to make sure that greeting experience is positive, that it stands out from the beginning. They're like, I'm so glad we came to this church today. Seems like a fun church, because you're demonstrating a little bit of your personality. And let me just say, as a leader, it's important for you to be out there greeting families. Now, you need to have no responsibility. All right, you need to have your hosts and greeters and people running the stuff so that you're not, preoccupied now when the printer jams, and the internet goes down, all those crazy things that happen. You're also there to fix it and address it really fast. And those things, of course, do happen, and they only happen on Sunday morning, right? Right? Do I hear an amen? But you need to be there and greet those parents at the end of your service. You want to arrange it that you can slip out, and another leader does a closing song or a summary or review questions. So you could be out working the parents, schmoozing the parents, going down the parent pickup line, handing out your table talkers or the take-home papers. Again, have a volunteer to do that, but you help out. And so you can have that relational connection. So the greeting, give some effort to your greeting. We actually, the reason I'm wearing this little smiley button is we actually put a little smiley button on all of our guests. And don't say this is to mark you as a guest. You say, I'm so glad you're here. You make me smile. Here, have a smiley sticker. And then you train your volunteers that any kid wearing that yellow smiley is a guest. So they're to go overboard with high fives and welcomes and just making them feel welcome and giving them treats and just spoiling them, knocking their socks off. You could slip them an extra trading card. You could slip them an extra prize. I'm so glad you came today. I hope you're going to come back next week. I like you, all right? And so you just be enthusiastic in your greeting. The R is the registration. Okay, that's not very exciting. But part of our job, right, with the security is to register our family. So you want to make sure you've thought that process through, that you've made it easy, that you've made it accessible, as quick as possible. You might want to be like Chick-fil-A. If you do it manual out with a clipboard, you've got someone right out there to help them write it down, to guide them through the process. At Kidology, we highly recommend KidCheck, because KidCheck is fast, it's easy, it's seamless. They even have touch-free check-in now. You'll want to check that out at kidology.org/KidCheck. Mention you're a Kidology member. They even give you a discount for your whole first year. So you want to make sure whatever check-in system you use, that it's clear, that you've got signs that say, new family registration or volunteer check-in or station 1 or station 2 or express check-in. You want to make sure that registration process, which is the yuckiest and the most frustrating, but most important in some ways for security for families. Families want to know their kid is safe. And so sometimes I'll say, I'm sorry, I know this is kind of tedious, but kids are so important to us. We make sure that your kids go back to you and nobody else. And most parents in today's world, they're doing this at Chuck E. Cheese. They're doing it everywhere else. They know that is important. In fact, if you don't do it, that will not make a good first impression. The E is kind of a unique one. You want to see if there is a way that you can encourage the parents. You have to understand, if they're visiting the church, when you ask, how'd you find out about the church, or what brought you to our church today, sometimes they'll just say, we moved here and we're looking for a new church. That's pretty obvious. But a lot of times, there's a reason they're coming to church. And there may be something going on in their life. And you don't know what that is. And obviously they're not going to share that all with you in the brief time. But there's a way with practice and experience and wisdom and prayer and a sensitivity to the Holy Spirit that you can make them aware that you know that. If they just say, oh, we just decide to come and live in the neighborhood, and say, I'm so glad you're here. I know it took a lot to get the kids up and to get them all dressed and rallied into the car, and you made it here, and look at this, you're even early. Some of our regular people come late. So glad you're there. I really hope you discover today what you're hoping God has for you. You just express something like that, and it lets them know that this isn't just a program and this isn't just childcare, that we're there to minister to them. And you'll find with practice and through sensitivity to the Holy Spirit, you'll find things that you can say that are brief, can't launch into a sermon, but acknowledge that they're here for a reason. They have prioritized church, and you're glad they're here. You also can encourage them with their kids' behavior. A lot of times they're there because the last church their kid got in trouble. Maybe their kid has some hyperactivity or some special needs. And if you see that, sometimes you can visually tell it. Sometimes you can tell by the kid's behavior. Parents are nervous. They're waiting to see if their kid's going to be judged. I'll go right there and say, I am so glad you were here today. I love kids just like you. And if they're a little squirrely, you know what I say? Man, you remind me of myself. I was just like you when I was your age. Did you know that I was the same age as you when I was your age? Well, the way I word that, ask how old they are, and they say they're 7. You say, 7? Did you know I was 7 when I was your age? And you make a connection with them. I've had parents come to me and apologize in advance for their kids' behavior, because they're just anticipating their kid's a little wild or crazy or whatever the situation is. And I just say that I am extra glad they're here today, because we exist to make church fun for the kids. At High Point, I say our goal is that Sunday will be the high point of your kids' week. I was at a church called The Rock, and we said our goal is that we want to make Sundays rock for any kid who comes. So you come up with your own fun catchphrase, and it lets them know. And anytime a parent apologizes, I stop. I say, don't apologize. That's why we're here. We love kids. Jesus loves kids. And we are happy to let kids be kids. If a kid does something that's, really bad or, rude or mean, of course, we'll let you know. But in general, we just want you to go to worship, be fed, enjoy your time there in the adult service, and just rest assured, we love your kid. Your kid's fine. Our volunteers are trained to work with all kinds of kids, and we love every kid unconditionally. There's no bad kids in our children's ministry. They're just kids that need different degrees of love and grace and forgiveness. And I can tell you, sincerely, I've had parents' eyes well up in tears. In fact, I know there's families in my church and in my ministry over the years that sealed the deal. They were like, man, if I don't have to be timid, I don't have to worry, my kid can be himself. A lot of parents don't medicate their kids on the weekend. And that used to drive me nuts when I was a young rookie pastor. Like, you medicate them all week, you give them their medication, on Sunday you don't. And it took God giving me an ADHD boy to realize when we were at the time where we used some medication to try and help him with his special needs, that on Sundays I just wanted my kid back, right? I just wanted, because it affected his personality, his appetite, and his sleep and all kinds of things. And so I'm not judgmental at all anymore of parents who say, you know what, the kid's going to be a little squirrely, a little crazier on Sunday, but we just want to let him be who God made him to be. And when you express that to parents, when you encourage them and you let them know about the unconditional love and acceptance of your kids, you cannot even imagine how much that encourages the parent. And they're like, this is my church, man. If my kids loved like that here. All right, so you want to greet them well. You want to register them quick and easy, and you want to encourage them. The A is the atmosphere, all right? That has to do with what we already talked about walking. What is the atmosphere there? Is it fun? Like, we've got, we use the smiley theme. We have smiley stickers. We have buttons for the adults to wear. We have a little button if they use the express check-in. We ring the button if there's a visitor. I don't do it for visitors. I don't want to embarrass them. But for our express check-in, whether you wear uniform shirts or you have something fun, sometimes we'll just put balloons out. If it's a seasonal time, you want to decorate for that season. We've got some computer monitors up. One is just family check-in, a cool graphic. The other one's scrolling at advertisements and pictures from the ministry. Just ask yourself, what can I do to make sure the atmosphere from what they see to what they experience, you want to make sure it's clean, that it's clear, and that it's creative. Your check-in area should be different than anybody else's. Don't copy other churches. You can get ideas from other churches, but yours needs to be yours. You want it to stand out in their memory. And so just prayerfully ask yourself and just go stand in your check-in area and say, what can I do here to create an atmosphere that's welcoming, that's loving, that's inviting, that's positive, and gives parents a good feeling as they leave behind the most important, precious thing in their whole life, their children, and they go off to the adult service. The last one, and this is a fun one, I've got some things to show you, is the takeaway. What do parents take away from the ministry? Now, they're going to take memories. They're going to take impressions, first impressions. They're going to take away memories of your words and the things that you said to them. But you want to give them something tangible as well. It's important to have a brochure for your kids' ministry. I've got a fun little brochure, and right on the cover, I use this verse on probably all my brochures going back decades. I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. That's Psalm 122, verse 1. I love using that verse, and I'll say that's my goal. I want, when kids hear, is it church day, it's Sunday, that they want to be in the house. So that's why I have right on there, making Sunday the high point of a kid's week. All right, so play off your church name if you can. And inside, you want to make it just word overview of your ministry, brief explanations. Don't give them a book to read. I've got a tear off for if they want to volunteer. And then have your purpose. Parents do read these things. They'll be sitting in big church reading your brochure, right? So I have our purpose. We strive to be child-centered, highly relational, gospel-focused, and family-focused, all right? And then I got a little picture of me, the kids pastor, with my email with an encouragement that they're welcome to reach out to us. And then, of course, let them know about your social media accounts, your Facebook, your website. Give all that information on there and send that with them. Now, we have these out on a rack. I forgot to grab it when I grabbed a bunch of stuff from check-in. I actually have a letter in an envelope with my business card. And so the First Impressions team, if they know it's a new family and I'm not there, they say, here's a special letter from our children's pastor. And it's a letter I write. It's one page, big font. It's got our logos down the side. And it just tells about the ministry. If you want me to post that, put that in the comments, and I'll put the mail. Put it as a Word doc. You can even edit it. It has the brochure, and then I even put in a fun little maze, because sometimes they'll take one kid to service with them, and so I put a little activity sheet in there, just in case they visited, kid chickened out, going to church, they couldn't do the separation thing, and so I just have that in there as something fun. Now, I want to make sure the kids take something home that makes an impression as well, all right? So we now have, and this is available on Kidology, I have this fantastic Bible activity book, all right? We can give this to kids if they go into service. It's some Bible activities and it's some easy coloring sheets that you can do. The back page is customizable. So our back page promotes our church, all right? And I have a picture of the church, because we use these in outreaches in the community. I carry these around and give them to kids in restaurants and things like that. But that's a fun little tangible thing you can give them. If you go to kidology.org/activity book, you'll find this generic one. You'll also find a Christmas one. And soon, we've just started working on our Easter one so that you can be themed for the holiday. That's for Easter egg hunts. I'll tell you more about that as soon as it's ready. We give our kids a really cool box. I went on Oriental Trading because we have an outdoor mountain theme, and I found these cool little boxes. I put a sticker on there that, of course, says, see you next week, because that's our goal. And we give this to our guests, and we tell them, we're so excited you came. We have a box of treats for you. So let me show you what's inside this box, all right? I've talked about this in recent podcasts, the All About Me sheet. I actually pull this out and show it to them and say, if you bring this back next week, all filled in, you'll get a prize from my prize picnic basket right up on the stage. And they've seen that. So a lot of kids, they just come back because they want the prize, and they bring this sheet back. And I won't explain this in detail. It's in previous podcasts. You can also go to kidology.org/all-about-me, and you can read all about it. All right. I always include some kind of a fun CD. Right now I've got Jeff McCullough's Romans Road CD, so it's songs that share the gospel. So I'm excited to put that in there. I have a little bag of Skittles that I give them, and along with that is a little gospel presentation with the colors of the Skittles. Just a fun little way to include the gospel. And then, of course, there is a little prize, a little sticky hand. Here's something, a little prize ball. Just some from your prize chest. We just throw some in there. And then we use our great adventure cards, kidology.org/TGA, The Great Adventure. And of course, we use these every week for kids who come, bring their Bible, answer questions, bring friends. And our kids are collecting these great adventure cards. And this is another thing that is a tool, especially if you get a chance to explain it to parents what it is briefly. Kids want to come back because they want to get more of the trading cards. In fact, we even have trading card notebooks that the kids can get, and they can collect the cards in there. And if they collect the whole series, I tell them I will buy them an Action Comic Book Bible. All right, they've got to collect all 80 cards, and they have to be able to answer the trivia questions. I don't quiz them on all 80, but I'll pick a couple random ones. And elsewhere, I've explained the gospel cards. They can only get those if I give them to them and get to share the gospel with them. That's the last 4 cards in the series. So I want to make sure they go home with fun stuff. And that I said today was sponsored by Balloon Feet. We also give our kids, especially the little ones, these balloon feet. And you can buy balloons with smileys. Amazon was out of my really cool ones that are colorful and funny faces. So I'm waiting for those to be back in stock, but here's a regular smiley. And it's just a fun little feet. There's 4 different patterns. How beautiful are the feet that bring good news, Romans 10:15. And it says, we're glad you walked into our church. And then on the back side, you can actually put a little message. Ours says, we're so glad you visited High Point Church. We hope you'll come again and again. Our goal is to make church the high point of your week. If mom or dad have any questions, they can check out our website with the website address or email Pastor Karl with my address. See you next Sunday. So this is a really fun little thing that kids go home with, and they absolutely love it. So you want to make sure that you are intentional and you think through your first impressions. Because remember, don't get a second chance to make a good first impression. So what's your assignment? To drive into your church, walk in the front door, and with fresh eyes and open eyes and a creative heart, judge yourself as though you were visiting your church, and take notes, take pictures, all right? You can even do that with your team, all right? It's a lot of fun to do. Then you want to make sure you make a great first impression. So you want to make sure your greeting is enthusiastic, that it's fun, that you greet the kids first, and you celebrate. You cannot be too excited about a guest that you're so glad they came. Make sure your registration process is clean, it's clear, it's simple, it's expedited. Customer service needs to be a priority so that they go, wow, that wasn't so bad, because that's like the necessary evil to get the stickers and get all registered and all that. You want that to be as easy as possible. Then look at the atmosphere. How can you make the atmosphere fun? Whether it's balloons or outfits or some of the humorous things you do to greet the kids, or things you have up on screen, or music playing. I even know of a children's pastor who her husband worked for a company that created scents, like actual smells that they pump into theaters and at different entertainment places. And so she actually used some top secret scents. It's like a subtle subconscious scent. And you can do chocolate chip cookies, you could do popcorn, whatever. But she just wanted them to just come in and have these happy feelings. Like, wow, I could really go for a chocolate chip cookie right now. And last away, what's the takeaway? What are they going to go home with that during the week they're going to see it and go, you know what? I think let's not visit a new church. Let's just go back to that church because our kids had such a great and a positive experience. So thanks for joining me here on Kidmin Talk. First impressions are so important. So think it through. You're free to use some of my ideas. Be sure to go to the show notes. I'll have links to all these different things, the articles, the resources I mentioned. Always, it's just kidology.org/Kidmin Talk, and then the episode number. And this is episode 154. So I'm so glad you joined me here today. As always, your feedback is always welcome and enjoyed. So drop me an email, Facebook posts, makes my day and encourages me to keep at this podcast. It's a blessing and it's a privilege to get to serve you in this way. And I hope to hear from you some of the things that you've done in order to make a great first impression in your ministry.